What if the very pillars of conventional wisdom, those extolling presence, charisma, and the pursuit of universal admiration, are not merely flawed, but fundamentally antithetical to true power? What if the essence of commanding respect, of cultivating a presence so formidable it unsettles those around you, lies not in being loved, transparent, or approachable, but in forging an enigma so meticulously controlled, so deliberately veiled that it evokes not awe, but a primal, unshakable trepidation? This trepidation stems not from what you choose to reveal, but from what you withhold, from the uncharted depths others sense but cannot penetrate. In a world that venerates openness, confidence, and emotional accessibility as the pinnacle of influence, these qualities, far from being strengths, become shackles, stripping away the mystique that is the true currency of power. To wield an aura that terrifies, one must master the art of concealment, crafting a presence that is unreadable, deliberate, and profoundly disquieting. A shadow that looms larger than the man himself. Society relentlessly champions transparency and vulnerability, urging individuals to lay bare their thoughts, emotions, and intentions in a ceaseless quest for connection and validation. This dogma, pervasive in modern culture, equates openness with authenticity, promising acceptance and influence in return for self-exposure. Yet, this is a perilous deception. When you bare your soul, your desires, fears, and motives, you hand others a map to your vulnerabilities, a blueprint for manipulation, a weapon to wield against you. By rendering yourself predictable, you surrender the reins of control, becoming a marionette in the hands of those who can anticipate your every move. True power, by contrast, resides in the silent spaces, in the calculated withholding of information, in the disciplined restraint that suggests an untamed force lying dormant. Like a volcano whose quiet belies its potential for cataclysm, it is the quiet certainty of a person who requires no external validation, whose presence feels like a gathering storm held behind an impenetrable facade. Its destructive potential palpable yet unseen. Consider the piercing gaze of an individual who observes with cold calculation rather than impulsive emotion, their eyes betraying no hint of their inner machinations. Every culture, from the courts of ancient empires to the boardrooms of today, celebrates the gregarious, the effusive, the individual who radiates warmth and expressiveness, as if such traits are the apogee of human connection. Yet, in the unforgiving arena of power where influence is won not through affection, but through command, such openness invites dissection. The expressive soul is laid bare, their weaknesses catalogued, their influence eroded by their own candor. In stark contrast, the person who remains inscrutable, whose intentions are cloaked in shadow, commands attention not through what is visible, but through what is concealed. As Niccolò Machiavelli astutely observed, everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. This principle forms the bedrock of a terrifying aura, absolute mastery over one's outward appearance, achieved not through honesty or authenticity, but through precision, discipline, and an almost surgical control of perception. The craft of aura, precision and restraint. To cultivate such an aura, one must forge an exterior that is calm, deliberate, and sparse, a canvas painted with the subtlest strokes of restraint. When you enter a room, resist the impulse to flood it with words or gestures to seek immediate recognition or approval. Instead, let silence stretch like a taut thread, allowing your presence to resonate with unspoken weight. Each word you eventually utter should carry the gravity of inevitability, each movement imbued with purpose, as if every gesture were a brushstroke on a masterpiece of perception. The individual who commands attention without demanding it, whose presence is felt rather than proclaimed, instills a subtle, primal fear in others. This fear is not born of bombast or overt aggression, but of the quiet certainty that hints at untapped reserves of power, like a coiled serpent whose strike remains only a possibility. Unlike love, which is fragile and demands constant nurturing, fear embeds itself deeply, burrowing into the psyche, lingering long after the encounter has passed, a shadow that haunts the mind. This art of restraint requires a disciplined rejection of the modern impulse to overshare. In an age where social platforms reward constant visibility, where every thought is tweeted, every moment documented, Every emotion broadcast the temptation to expose oneself is relentless. Yet, this is a trap, a voluntary surrender to surveillance. The man who cannot resist sharing his thoughts, pleasures, or plans sacrifices his aura for fleeting validation, trading mystery for momentary applause. A blank page terrifies more than a fully written book, for it invites the mind to conjure nightmares. In relationships, business, or politics, those who reveal too much are forgotten. Those who remain concealed become legends. Reputation thrives on scarcity. By appearing rarely, speaking sparingly, and moving deliberately, you create demand. Demand breeds mystique, mystique breeds fear, and fear breeds aura. Historical exemplars. The architects of fear history is replete with figures who mastered this art of enigmatic power, their legacies enduring as testaments to the potency of aura. Cesare Borgia, a man of ruthless ambition and calculated design, understood that his aura alone could paralyze adversaries before a single blow was struck. He wielded cruelty not as an end, but as a precise instrument, delegating its execution to others to preserve his image as a ruler both feared and revered. When whispers of tyranny threatened his reputation, he orchestrated the public execution of his own lieutenant, Ramiro d'Orco, presenting himself as both merciless and merciful, a ruler capable of decisive action, yet cloaked in the guise of justice. This duality created an aura of inevitability, as if his every move were dictated by a higher design, a force beyond mortal reckoning. It was not his sword that terrified, but his ability to withhold expression, to let a single gesture nod, a glance carry the weight of a city's fate. His silence was a canvas upon which others painted their fears, magnifying his presence beyond the man himself. Similarly, Oliverotto da Fermo exemplified the power of unpredictability by hosting a lavish banquet for the elite of his city, only to betray and murder them at the height of their trust. He demonstrated that true terror lies in the unexpected. His aura stemmed not from the act of violence itself, but from the fact that no one could anticipate it, shattering the illusion of safety. As Machiavelli wrote, men must either be caressed or crushed. Anything less invites rebellion. A terrifying aura, then, is one that never wavers, never exposes weakness, and never allows others to predict its next move. This requires precision, a calm that unnerves, a gaze that lingers too long, a silence that forces others to break it. Such precision is not theatrical, for theatrics invite mockery. It is the stillness of a predator, the quiet of a storm before it breaks, the weight of a presence that needs no embellishment. Ferdinand of Spain offers another example, cloaking his conquests in the guise of religious devotion. By presenting himself as a servant of a higher cause, he secured obedience from his people while advancing his power. His aura stemmed not from his armies alone, but from the perception that his actions were inevitable, as if guided by divine will. Whether true or not, perception outstrips reality. Men submit to the shadow cast by power, not to power itself. Pope Alexander VI, too, manipulated alliances with a subtlety that kept others guessing. His aura strengthened by what he concealed rather than what he revealed. Men feared him not simply for his cunning, but because they never knew which side he would favor until it was too late. Even Agathocles of Syracuse, a man of humble origins, forged an aura in a single night by slaughtering the elite of his city during a banquet, demonstrating that fear requires not constant violence, but the memory of one unforgettable act. Mythology and literature, the eternal shadow bind history. Mythology and literature offer timeless archetypes of the terrifying aura. In Greek mythology, Hades, the god of the underworld, was feared not for his visibility, but for his absence. Unlike Zeus, who thundered from the heavens, or Poseidon, who churned the seas, Hades ruled from the shadows, his presence felt in the chill of mortality rather than in overt displays. His aura was one of inevitability, a reminder that all must eventually face him, yet none could predict when or how. Similarly, in Shakespeare's Othello, Iago wields a terrifying aura through his inscrutability. He speaks in riddles, manipulates through silence, and allows others to project their fears and desires onto him, orchestrating their downfall without ever fully revealing his motives. His power lies not in physical strength, but in the uncertainty. He sows a shadow that consumes those who try to grasp it. In modern literature, characters like Thomas Harris's Hannibal Lecter embody this principle. Lecter terrifies not because of his violence alone, but because of his calm, his intellect, his ability to see through others while remaining impenetrable himself. His silence is a weapon, his restraint a blade, his gaze a labyrinth that traps those who meet it. These figures, mythological, historical, and fictional, illustrate a universal truth. The terrifying aura is not about what is shown, but what is withheld, what is suggested, what is left to the imagination. The psychology of fear, the power of the unknown psychologically. This works because humans are driven by imagination more than fact. Show your strength and others will measure its limits, conceal it, and they will imagine it boundless. Show your emotions, and they will exploit your vulnerabilities. Conceal them, and they will question whether you have any. Show your ambitions, and they will conspire against you. Conceal them, and they will hesitate to strike. The terrifying individual is a labyrinth, an enigma that exhausts those who try to unravel it. Their overthinking becomes their undoing as they yield to the weight of their own uncertainty. This principle is rooted in the human dread of the unknown, a fear more potent than any physical threat. People do not fear the lion charging toward them. They fear the rustle in the grass, the shadow that cannot be placed, the silence that precedes violence. To cultivate a terrifying aura, you must become that shadow, that rustle, that silence. This fear of the unknown is amplified by contrast. A ruler who is always cruel becomes predictable. One who is always merciful becomes weak. But the one who blends both, as necessity demands, becomes ungraspable. You must cultivate this tension: the lion's strength and the fox's cunning, the caress and the crush, allowing only hints of your true nature to surface. In negotiations, the one who reveals desperation loses. In relationships, the one who overshares becomes disposable. In public life, the one who constantly explains is dismissed. The one who withholds, who refuses to be consumed by the hunger for validation, becomes a force others cannot ignore. This instability is not weakness, it is the foundation of aura. A single act of decisive cruelty followed by calculated mercy leaves deeper fear than 1,000 acts of consistent behavior. Psychologically, this instability robs others of confidence, forcing them to second-guess their actions, their strength dissolving into paranoia. Modern traps, the tyranny of exposure. In the modern world, the pressure to expose oneself is relentless. A tyranny disguised as liberation. Social platforms reward constant visibility, equating exposure with influence, authenticity with vulnerability. Yet, this is a trap, a voluntary surrender to surveillance. The man who cannot resist sharing his thoughts, pleasures, or plans sacrifices his aura for fleeting validation, trading mystery for momentary applause. Every post, every confession, every unguarded moment is a piece of sovereignty surrendered, a fragment of power handed to those who watch. Modern society fetishizes transparency, urging individuals to speak their truth as if truth were a currency to be spent, rather than a fortress to be guarded. But authenticity in a world that rewards exposure is slavery to impulse, a relinquishment of control to the whims of the crowd. The terrifying man refuses this. He lives with intention, speaking only when silence no longer serves him, revealing only what strengthens his image. He is not pulled by the world's hunger for spectacle. He pulls others into his orbit. Aura is about refusing to be consumed, about denying others predictability, clarity, and comfort. When men cannot classify you, they cannot control you. They fear you because fear grows in uncertainty. This uncertainty is your weapon. One day you are merciful, the next merciless. One day you smile, the next you stare with silence. This instability is not chaos, it is strategy. Men fear what they cannot classify, and the ruler who mixes clemency with cruelty terrifies more than the one who is only cruel. The battlefield of perception, strategy, and silence consider the battlefield as a metaphor for this principle. A general who moves openly invites anticipation. One who conceals their march strikes terror before the battle begins. The Roman conquests exemplify this. When Rome razed a city to ash, as they did with Carthage, they ensured it would never rise again. Their aura was built not only on legions, but on the inevitability of their vengeance. Resistance was not merely punished, it was obliterated. So too with aura. If you must act, act decisively, so that no one doubts your resolve. Half measures invite rebellion. Complete resolve inspires fear and respect. As Machiavelli counseled, do all the harm at once, but distribute benefits gradually. A single act of unforgettable cruelty, followed by calculated mercy, imprints itself like a scar in memory, sustaining your aura even when you remain silent. This principle extends to every arena of life. In negotiations, the one who reveals desperation loses. In relationships, the one who overshares becomes disposable. In politics, the one who constantly explains is dismissed. The one who withholds, who refuses to be consumed by the hunger for validation, becomes a force others cannot ignore. Aura is not about dominating through force, but about infecting others with doubt so profound they sabotage themselves. The enemy becomes their own executioner, the rival their own undoing, all because you remained unreadable. This is why aura is more powerful than brute strength. Strength can be measured, tested, countered. Aura cannot. It is a shadow, and shadows cannot be struck. The duality of aura, lion and fox, mercy and ruthlessness. Terrifying aura thrives on contrast. Mercy in public, ruthlessness in private, calm in demeanor, decisive in action. This duality denies others the ability to categorize you, amplifying their fear. A ruler who is always cruel becomes predictable. One who is always merciful becomes weak. But the one who blends both, as necessity demands, becomes ungraspable. You must cultivate this tension: the lion's strength and the fox's cunning, the caress and the crush, allowing only hints of your true nature to surface. In negotiations, relationships, or public life, the one who withholds, who refuses to overshare, becomes a force others cannot dismiss. This duality is evident in modern figures as well. Consider the enigmatic presence of leaders like Vladimir Putin, whose calculated restraint and unpredictable actions create an aura that unsettles both allies and adversaries. His silence is a weapon, his rare words heavy with implication, his actions a blend of diplomacy and decisiveness that defies easy categorization. Similarly, in the corporate world, figures like Steve Jobs wielded an aura of inevitability, their vision and discipline creating a mystique that inspired both awe and fear. Their power lay not in constant visibility, but in the strategic scarcity of their presence, their ability to appear as forces of nature rather than mere men. The discipline of self-mastery, forging the unshakable aura, is not built overnight, nor through theatrics. It is earned through restraint, through discipline, through the refusal to bow to the impulses that consume lesser men. The terrifying man does not flood the world with himself, he starves it. When you are absent, others wonder where you are. When you are silent, they wonder what you think. When you are still, they wonder what you plan. You become absence turned into presence, silence turned into weight, stillness turned into dread. This is why appearances matter more than reality. Men judge with their eyes, not their hands. So let their eyes deceive them. Appear calm even when chaos burns inside, certain even when the outcome is unclear, unbothered even when provoked. Your aura is not your reality, it is the mask you craft, held until others no longer dare to look behind it. In the solitude of self-mastery, where most falter, your aura is forged. A man enslaved to impulse, anger, desire, or validation cannot unsettle others, for his weaknesses betray him. But the man who builds silence into armor, discipline into a weapon, and restraint into a shadow wields a presence that lingers long after he is gone. As Machiavelli counseled, it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Love fades with neglect, fear endures in silence. A ruler whose aura is built on fear can vanish, yet their name will still evoke whispers. That is the essence of aura. It outlives flesh, survives absence, and lingers like smoke in the air. The modern paradox, detachment in an age of noise. In an age of noise, where opinions are endless and validation is a currency, detachment is dominance. The man who does not seek to be heard, who refuses to be controlled by the need for approval, terrifies. His self-sufficiency wounds the egos of those who crave recognition. for they cannot comprehend a person unbound by such desires. This is why aura is not just a weapon, but a mirror reflecting the insecurities of others. In betrayal, this power is most evident. Loyalty, as Machiavelli taught, is a calculation, not a virtue. The terrifying individual expects betrayal, accounts for it, and remains unshaken when it arrives. This detachment unnerves others, for it suggests an invulnerability they cannot imagine. Consider the Roman approach to conquest when they razed a city to ash. They ensured it would never rise again. Their aura was built not only on legions, but on the inevitability of their vengeance. So too with aura. If you must act, act decisively, so that no one doubts your resolve. Half measures invite rebellion. Complete resolve inspires fear and respect. This principle holds true across all ages. The tyrant who does not need to raise his voice, the general whose soldiers obey because his gaze makes hesitation impossible, the ruler whose rare smile terrifies. More than another's constant rage, all wield power through scarcity, not excess. The eternal storm, becoming inevitability. Aura is inevitability clothed in restraint. It is the sensation that you cannot be moved, that your presence bends the world without effort. The terrifying man does not chase recognition, for recognition is a confession of need. He does not explain, for explanation is submission. He moves as if guided by fate, as if every gesture is preordained. In this, he becomes the storm others cannot escape, the question no one can answer, the shadow no one can grasp. To cultivate such an aura requires discipline most cannot endure, withholding when others demand exposure, refusing when others demand reaction, mastering impulses when others indulge theirs. So, embrace this truth. Speak sparingly, reveal only what serves you, and reject the cravings that bind others. Let your silence become your empire, your unpredictability your shield, your restraint your sword. When others whisper your name, warn one another, or lower their eyes in your presence, you will know your aura has become unshakable. Reflect on this. Are you ready to be misunderstood, rejected, or even feared in pursuit of your inner strength? Are you willing to choose your peace over the world's approval? True power begins when you choose yourself, even at the cost of standing alone. In that choice, you forge an aura that does not merely command attention, it commands fear, respect, and ultimately, immortality.